Hello, everybody. Yes, the picture quality is good. Welcome to the Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast, episode 3. Wow, we made it here. Every new episode, I'm a little bit surprised that we made it, but hello and welcomes. Hope everyone's doing good today. I'm here with my co-host Shady Bunny. How are you?
Doing great. Just a very fun stream. Just loving the game. Passionate to share.
That's always nice to hear. I'm also doing all right. You know, panicking a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
As I
That's
do.
still not a habit somehow,
Yeah,
but yeah.
but I think we got it in. First topic of the day, we've got mega bundle giveaway for the people that are watching on YouTube and podcast. Well, you know, unfortunately for you guys, you didn't get it. Maybe you should tune in next time. But we've got 10 or so mega bundles to give away after the podcast. So after you listen to the podcast, just stick around. We'll try to give them to the people in the Twitch chat. But other than that, you know, if you are watching on YouTube, maybe leave a comment. I might have a little something special for y'all guys. But then again, you know, we shall have to see. But, you know, make sure to thank Blizzard for this opportunity, and we'll see who will be the lucky few. Next topic, we got just a weekly overview of Battlegrounds. How do you feel about Battlegrounds this week, Shady?
Right now, I'm feeling great. I'm on an upswing. I might just be getting a lot of good heroes, but I'm enjoying. It feels like I am. It feels like I feel when I need to get stronger and when I just need to greed. And that feels so good. Like so often I'm just looking at my hand. I'm like, I should hold this minion. I can get away with it. Or like, oh no, I definitely need to stay here and I need to roll and play. So that feels pretty good. Like when you're feeling the meta and you know when you're supposed to get stronger, when you're supposed to try to go for the win.
Yeah, that kind of feeling always happens to me. Maybe like the third weekend after I play. It's like new patch hits. I don't know what I'm doing. I just lose a bunch. Yeah. Then, you know, middle of the pack, I'm doing all right. I'm trying to get it. And then right before they change it, you know, like the day or two, right when I get it, they're like, new patch, change everything. I'm just like, no, I understand the meta now. But I think, yeah, it's necessary for the game. There will be a couple of changes coming. We could probably move on to our next topic, right? The patch 20.0. You know, if you guys are not aware, there's a new patch coming out today, I believe. So, you know, look out for that. One of the bigger changes is Pilot Shredder getting removed, as well as adding a new hero and a new minion. We're probably going to talk about that later on. But for now, let's talk about the removal of Pilot Shredder. I gotta be honest, I hated this minion. It's so troll. It pulls goals so often, and you're just like, why did I even run this? It actively made my board worse sometimes, not all the time, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of this hero anyways.
The text was basically, if you control more than 2 Divine Shields, Death Rattle, summon a ghoul, and then screw the game up for you. Or from, you know, an opponent as a coiler into a shredder, into a ghoul, wrecks your deflecto that just reset or something. Yeah, just not, it's not the fun kind of RNG for sure. Just sitting like, oh, I guess I lost because my own unit trolled me. Nice.
Yeah. One
Yeah,
interesting thing just to talk about is they removed the mech, right? But they added a new hero to replace it, but it wasn't a mech, right? So you would think there's like an intricate balance between all the minion types, right? Know, if we have this many mechs in this tavern to balance out this many in this tavern, It's all an intricate plan. If you remove one, right, we gotta replace it or change or add some fundamental to keep the power levels the same. You would think. But here it just kind of shows, no, we can remove a mech, doesn't matter. We'll just put something random in and yeah, it's fine.
Well, yeah, that's going to affect, especially when you power level, like let's say with Silas to tier 3. Right. A lot of the time you're like, oh, nice, Sensei, and oh, I guess the Shredder will do, right? So that happens a bit less now, where you go, oh, Sensei, and oh, not a mech. That's annoying. It's really not the preferred mech. Clunker is better, Deflecto is better. Heck, I'd even play a naked Menace right over a Shredder, so it's just... Sure. I prefer to get a consistent plus, you know, like 3 1/1s and a reset than whatever the Shredder is going to give me. So I guess that is a little bit of an impact. When you go early tier 3, there's just less chance you're going to get a Sensei to pop off with a mech.
Yeah, but it's interesting that like there's sub balance, right, between the minion types and things like that, and they're just kind of changing it up as they go, right? They feel like this minion is the weirdest three of the bunch, right? Because there are a lot of threes that they could have touched, right? That, you know, maybe this, but they decided to pick this one, and I thought it was interesting. It just makes mechs a little bit weaker. Sometimes, right? Sometimes you'll see a shredder in a normal mod, and you'll take that because, you know, it does make you stronger, but it's not like the preferred option. Now you don't get that option, so it's just interesting to see that, oh, they're okay with changing things and not like making it in equilibrium, like adding a new mech or adding something like that. They just added a whole different archetype, so just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, I think if it was a different minion than Shredder, there'd be some outrage, but I haven't talked to anyone who's like, oh, I can't believe they removed Shredder. It's just like, this is a very uninteresting, kind of awkward minion you don't really want to play. So at least now you don't have it in the shop where you're like, oh, I guess I have to take it, right? So
yeah, that's true.
I pretty much always end up regretting it. I'm like, oh man, I wish I didn't buy it.
Yeah, it's not the best minion. I just thought it was an interesting topic of discussion. Our next thing we shall be talking about is the F2k Battlegrounds Tournament. It is happening in 2 days, so it's pretty soon if you guys are interested in watching some high-level Battlegrounds. Well, theoretically high-level Battlegrounds, you know, Shady's in there, so maybe not as high-level as you're looking for. But there are some good things. We got our lineup in the Twitter post. There's one little change. Tice, I believe, couldn't make it, so Jackie Chan's popping on in instead. But everyone else seems to be confirmed, so just a little interesting. Since you are a competitor, I'm going to be casting with Nicolene and Alkalilea, so anyone interesting that you want to take down, you know, any interesting competition that you're looking at, you know, hope that you beat up, or you know, hope that you don't.
I'm really looking forward to watching the broadcast and watching you cast me, right? That's gonna be hilarious. No, I mean, the lineup is stacked. It's really fun. It's there's no one really that I'm like, oh man, I really want to beat this person. It is cool though to see some people on the ladder, right? And sometimes you like I've lethaled Slissa before, she's lethaled me before, or stuff like that. So
right.
I'm just trying to keep it fun, right? In the tournament, it's just sometimes you get the 2% lethal, and just you have to roll with it, right?
You're not gonna give me any trash talk. I need
the
content.
I'm not gonna be like, you know what, Shady told me that.
Come on,
competitor X is going down, right? Yeah, no, that's not my thing, man. That's not my thing.
Fine,
let me give you the political answer. Come on, man.
Very boring. Look at this guy. Oh my god.
Whatever. Why am I your co-host?
It's all good. It's gonna be a great tournament. Gonna be excited to see all the plays, all the strategies. It's gonna be interesting, right? Because I believe the new hero will be in, right? So that might add a wrinkle in the game plan, right? Maybe it turns out to be really strong or really weak, and now you have like lower chances of and things like that.
Yeah. So I'm not great at predicting this kind of stuff, but from what I can tell, he does not feel great. Now, you know,
this is one of our topics, so we should probably, you know, move on.
Sure. Yeah, I've no idea. Ask me again in 5 minutes. Right?
But yes, let's move on to our next topic, right? Where we talk about the new minion, Barrens Blacksmith. So this is what's replacing Pilot Shredder. It has no minion type, so it's just a neutral minion. It's a 3-mana 3/5 Frenzy. We should probably discuss Frenzy a little bit. Frenzy is if it deals damage and survives, I believe, then the Frenzy pops. Am I correct with that?
Yeah. Okay. So it can be attacked as well, from my understanding, because it would deal damage if something attacks into it.
Yeah, so if it deals damage and survives, it Frenzy triggers. It can only trigger once per battle. And this ability is give your other minions +2/+2. So very similar to N'Zoth, Spawn of N'Zoth, in that it gives your other minions +1/+1. This one gives your other minions +2/+2. So kind of something you'd probably put in the front of your warband just to try to get it to trigger early and then buff all your minions if it survives. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so this is gonna heavily punish stuff like Tormented Ritualist and Acolyte, those small taunts that you can just attack into.
Right.
Because it's just gonna hit and it's always gonna live. Yeah, perhaps it's gonna you can maybe play Arm, right? immediately with those things, but usually you have those things before you have the arm. So I'm a little afraid of this because I really like stacking acolytes. From a personal point of view, I'm just like, but yeah, we'll adapt. Gonna play a bunch of Battlegrounds tomorrow, try to get that experience in the further tournament. But it looks like it can be scary, right? If you get it very early, it's pretty much like the Wind Fury Pirate, right? The Seabreaker, when that overkills, it gives your whole pirate board +2/+2. This will just give your whole board regardless +2/+2. So yeah, looks like it can just snowball and deal tons of damage early when you're preying on those small taunts.
I got a question for you. Do you think this could be meta warping in terms of like, this is in the game now, a week later people play completely different just because this card's in the game?
Well, let's say now that Tormented Ritualist was added, right? We play differently where we're like, I probably want to lead with this 3-power thing, because if I lead with the Spawn, then if they have Ritualist, sometimes with Spawn you don't care, but there's, like Selfless, for instance, is a good example where normally you're fine to put your Selfless in position 1, but when Tormented Ritualist is in the game, you might want to have a 3-power thing to clean kill it first. Same thing here with Barrens Blacksmith. If that's in the game, which it is now, then if you have small taunts, suddenly you're like, I probably don't want to buy this, because if they have a Blacksmith, then I'm screwed. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to have an impact. Of course, we have to play with it. We have to feel it out. We have to see, oh, it's too awkward. It's not good enough. The fact that it doesn't have a type, it doesn't scale up. But you can treat it, I guess, something like an arm. I'm not saying it's as good as an arm, but it's, you buy arm, you play arm, and then you get out of it at some point, or you just play like full arm comp. I don't think you're ever going to play full Blacksmith comp, but it's like a Spawn in a way where you just play it and it makes you strong, and then you ditch it later.
Yeah. I'm thinking this is going to be probably one of the best things. If you triple early, get a 3, right? This is probably going to be the best unit to get. You hit it, and then you've basically won the early game, right? So it has a lot of upside, especially in the super early game. Maybe like turn 5 and 6, if you level to 3 and then maybe get it next turn, that's probably the window where it's like it still does a lot of work, right? You're gonna buy it. But then once you start getting to Tavern 4 or Tavern 5, right, that's when people are gonna have things with higher than 5 attack, right? Unless you're running a hero that can buff this unit, right? If you can, buff this unit manually, then you're like, okay, I'll just keep it forever because it's a free +2/+2. But other than those specific heroes, right, it's going to get to a point where people are going to have 5 attack, right? Like they're the first, most of their minions, most of their board, most of their taunts, they're going to have 5 attack. So you run it and then it just dies and you're just like, well, it doesn't do anything anymore, right? So it's kind of interesting that it has that potential, especially early, to just be extremely strong, just knock people down. But there's a window, right? Once you pass that window, it's useless. So,
I think it's similar to Spawn in that regard, where Spawn isn't useless, but it's not like you're on tier 4, like, yes, Spawn, right? It's
well,
like,
Spawn has its own synergies with Baron and stuff like that, where you have that in the Baron, and you're like, well, I could keep this for pretty much the rest of the game if I don't find like some other direction to go on. So this one doesn't really have that unless you're playing
the exception, though, right? Like a vast majority of the spawns just get stitched.
Yeah,
you don't pick
Baron for that. True.
So I think in most cases you're gonna treat it like Spawn, where you just like to have it early and then you ditch it later for sure. And you're not gonna get into it when it's too late.
Yeah, so that's true.
But I think I guess something you can throw out is this is a buff to power levelers, where instant stabilization, right? If you're going to tier 3 on 5 gold and you hit that next drop, you're not taking damage anymore, right?
That's true.
Well, maybe you are, right? But you're not taking very much, and the turn after, you're definitely not taking any damage.
Yeah, so that's true. It does kind of reward people for leveling and then hitting it, which like it's also a neutral minion, right? So you don't have to like be scared, right? Where sometimes dragons aren't in and you're like, I can't get Bronze Warden if I level, right? Where here you can always be like, I can level regardless. And then
let me power level every single game from now on. Yeah, it's okay. We figured out the meta, Collins. All right, wrap it up, boys. We're done here. Power level every game. Hit the Blacksmith. Straight to 4.
I don't know if that's gonna be the way, but maybe it is, right? If you have this and dragons, right? You're like, well, I've got 2 hits instead of 1, so there's definitely something to think about there. But yeah, I think it's going to be a playable unit, right? It's not going to be something people just skip and like ignore and say, why did I add this, right? People are going to get punished by this and be like, it's actually pretty good. And then we'll see a meta where people maybe are leveling more or maybe are not buying as many like weak taunts and things like that, right? Like the 2-2 maybe might see less play because, if I have the 2-2 and then they have this, it always triggers every time or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, you still need to deal 5 damage, right? That's a lot of damage.
Yeah,
a
that's
lot of your
true.
stuff not gonna deal 5. So even if you're not buying small taunts, you're you're not gonna have more than half your board over 5 damage that early on.
That's true. I don't know if there's a way to play around this card, right?
That's right. So the more I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely gonna be like really nice early on. It's gonna be like the spawn on steroids if you get it early.
Yeah.
Right.
Watch out for this one.
Yeah, right.
Next topic, right, where we talk about the new hero, something. Overlord, Saurfang. Saurfang. Yeah. I want to do something interesting where I want one of us to talk positive about it, one of us to talk negative about it. Where
it's all right. You want to be good cop, bad cop? What are you doing here?
I don't know. I guess I'll be the good cop. Which one do you want to do?
Excellent. Oh, I want to shit on it, so it's fine.
All right. I'll start first in terms of like. So I believe every turn, right? You have a one mana hero power. You use it, and then the next minion you buy will get attack buffed, right? So another thing I believe every turn it upgrades and it doesn't reset. Whereas like, let's say turn 5 you use it, you get 5 attack, and then next turn you use it, you'll get 6 attack because they'll upgrade, right? So turn 10 and plus, right? You're giving 1 mana plus 10 to it, right? So the key feature, right? Early game it doesn't really do a lot, right? But it's still you're still getting like 2 attack in the early game, right? You do it on a Glyph Guardian, that's a lot of value, right? You get 4 dragon, 8 attack, you're probably one shot anything, even the 3/5 that gets your opponent has right? The key benefit of this really is utilizing it on mech units, right? Giving divine shield units and cleave units, right? So you let's say you buy a menace, you buff that, put on your deflected ball, you're good to go. You buy a deflected ball, you buff it, good to go, right? Very easy to just make a powerful mech comp. If you hit a Neuro module, you buff that, right? You've got a good unit, right? Takes 2 shots, So I think that's a really good way of utilizing this hero power, right? Just play a full mech comp and then buff it with menaces and Neuro modules, things like that, right? With cleave, right, you have a Hydra, you have a full Reaper. I don't know if you're going to tier 6 and rolling, right? Because you can't. It's not for discovers. It's just for minions you buy from the shop. So you can't like discover a full Reaper and then like hero power and buff it, right? So you just have to be rolling, right? So it makes full Reaper hits a little bit harder, but if you do get a full Reaper, you hit that Annoying module, there you go, you got it. So
yeah, let's just go to tier 6 and buy a full Reaper.
Yeah, if you do that, that also works, right? With Hydras you can buff it too. With Elementals, right, you've got the Divine Shield Elemental, you've got the Wildfire Elemental, right? So there's a lot of value in just having a big minion that you can 2-for-1 with. So it only costs 1 mana, right? A lot of these powerful hero powers cost 2, things like that, and you can squeeze it in at the end of the turn. You'll probably be able to, like, past the mid to late game, you'll probably be able to use this hero power every single turn. So even if you're switching out compositions, right, you'll at least have some form of stabilization in that. I'll have 1 minion that can at least 1-for-1, 2-for-1. Wherever Battle Master is always a great target, right? Imagine just instantly playing like a 13/30 Battle Master for no reason, right? So there's a lot of value in the flexibility and how cheap it is, and then just making sure that you're using it with the right composition. So I think this will see play. I don't know how good it will be, but I see the potential. Now you can go.
So I think it's awful. I mean, Colin sort of took this stance, right? So he's got to make his argument. My main problem with it is that you would probably want to reform curve it so that it does anything at any reasonable time. If you're not reform curving it, then when are you starting, right? You're starting on 8 gold at the earliest.
Yeah,
maybe level and press this button, or like buy 2 things and press the button on tier 3. It's just very, very late, right? Even if you hit a Hydra, the moment you go to tier 4, it'll be a 4/4 max. So you'd have to reform curve it for it to do anything. And then you get all the downsides from reform curve and very, very few upsides, right? You're not getting you're getting slightly stronger units, but you're still buying tier 1 units, whereas reform is getting extra units, Maiev is getting extra units. And that at the end of that tunnel is like, oh, I get a 5-drop, I get a 6-drop if the reform curve works out properly. This guy is like, oh, if I now happen to see a Hydra, suddenly it's larger. Ha ha ha. And yeah, the reform the Caligos pull is like, yeah, that's really cool, right? Let me just destroy you. So, I mean, obviously reform doesn't always get Caligos, but that's the reason why you play it. You want those triples and go. So I don't really see the hero power doing enough if you're not reform curving it, which means you hero power starting 4 gold every turn. And if you do, then I don't really see how you're getting anything done, how you're alive. So it just doesn't feel. It upgrades every turn, not every use.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like that. Okay. Never mind. Never mind. I thought this was a lot worse than it actually was. Okay. Let me rewind a little bit. Right. So completely scripted, 100%. So when are we talking? So when are you tier 4? You're tier 4 if you're fast, you're on 8 gold. So turn 7, we're talking plus. I mean, it's still so incredibly specific, right? Okay, it's better than I thought it was, but I still don't like it.
You got to make
What are
the
we looking
argument,
at?
Shady.
Sorry?
You got to make the argument.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. But how do you get it done? So you're playing your regular curve. You hit it first on 8 gold. That would be the normal turn to start
Something
using
like
it. So
that, yeah.
you'd have to hit a shield. And your hero power is I'm giving my thing that I'm buying plus 4? Plus 6?
5.
Yeah, plus 6. Oh yeah, plus 5 on 8. So that's not good enough to be a hero power, in my opinion. But we'll see, right? It's I mean, in a way, it's like ARM, right? But you have to just use it every turn, and ARM just buffs your whole comp for free, like that.
Yeah. Generally, I think one of us will be right?
Yeah, I mean,
that is the
would have been,
benefit of this, right?
I would have been definitely right if I thought it worked the way I initially did. But yeah, now there's a bit more room for interpretation. No worries, I'm gonna stick to my guns. This thing is awful. There we go. Ship it, send it.
Yeah, but generally, I do kind of agree with Shady. Like, past the gene that there's a good chance it's gonna be very slow in that it takes a lot of turns before you get the payoff, right? And there's a lot of games where people just die on like 7 gold. I've seen, that's like one of the worst feelings for me when it's turn 9 and I see people dead and I'm just like, you didn't really get to play the game, right? You just picked up the best units and someone smoked you. Unfortunately, you took 20, which you didn't really deserve. And that you can see that a lot here. Anytime you have a hero that that scales very late in the game and it doesn't scale massively, Ragnaros is like one of the outliers where if you do hit it, then you're pretty strong for at least to the mid to late game. Where this one, there's no guarantee you're going to be pretty strong. There's no guarantee you're going to get the clears. There's no guarantee you're going to play a mech comp and things like that. So you're kind of relying on, okay, I got to the position where I should be strong. Now I have to hope for another RNG that I get more divine shields or cleaves, and then I can actually be strong. So I survived the RNG stage of the game where I just don't have a hero power. Now I'm into a second stage of RNG where I need to find the pieces that I need. And if I don't do that, then this hero power doesn't really work that well, and then I'll slowly just fall apart. And another issue is that it only works on one hero per turn, right? It's not something you can utilize. So if you hit like three cleaves or 3 divine shields, you're like, well, I have an option. Which one do I want to buff? Okay, do I want to freeze my board for next turn and not get as strong as I could because I want to guarantee the buffs next turn, or do I just like buy them all and then like hope I find more divine shields that I want to utilize, right? So there's a little bit of clunkiness in that you can't buff every single divine shield that you want. You have to pick one if you find multiple in a turn. So there are some also extra limitations. I think there is potential in that it could work out. There are a decent amount of units that do benefit from just straight attack without needing health, divine shields and cleaves, and well, cleaves need health, but battle mash and stuff like that. So if you have like minion types, which is like, you know, demons, mechs, elementals, dragons, or something like that, then I could see where you pick it up. But it's not a guarantee, right? It's not a like I'm gonna always do well with this hero type of thing. So definitely something I will try at least once to see how it feels, and then after maybe like 3 weeks is is my people want to know like day one. Oh, how good is this hero? And I'm always like, give me some time to really see how other people play it and how I play it. But
I'll double down. Never playing this thing. Awful.
well, I'm gonna try at least once or twice just to see how it feels, and then we'll probably go from there. So yeah. Any last thoughts on this?
Well, in general, just feels a little bit too conditional, a little bit too clunky. Just doesn't feel like it's worth the hero power, right? Especially if we see the kind of heroes that are doing well in this meta. The hero power just does too much compared to what this does.
Yeah, I want to see another interesting wrinkle is I want to see how this hero adapts with the new patch, right? The new expansion, right? They're adding a new minion type, right? So that one's probably gonna have frenzies and stuff like that. So I wonder if there's gonna be some minions that are really gonna do well with having just extra attack without needing that health value that comes from it. So. It's something, it looks like they've made this hero in anticipation of the new expansion. So I'm wondering if the new expansion will be like, oh, look at this. It works. This hero works really well with this card, with this minion, da da da. Now we'll look at it at a different light. But right now, this is just like a preview of what's to come, right? Same thing with the minion from before, right? A new keyword frenzy is being added, right? So I'm assuming with Quillbores, you know, there's going to be more of that, more frenzy and things like that, and we'll see how this minion really adapts, right? Kind of similar to like the dragon expansion, right, where they added a bunch of dragon things and dragon synergies, right? Some were dragon synergies, but they didn't have the dragon tag, right? Like just things like that. I wonder if this is going to be kind of synergies with the new expansion, but not having like the Quillbore tag or something like that. So
yeah, for sure, for sure. If there's more units that benefit from high attack, then we can see it being better for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, that's our current thoughts on it. Who will be right? You know, who knows? Anyways, next topic which we'll be talking about will be APM Pirates. What is APM Pirates? Chetty is really a really big fan of this archetype. I don't really care, so you can take it away.
Oh man, yeah, can talk about this forever. So the basic premise of APM Pirates is that you have hoggers, which then at the very least 2 hoggers, which means that every pirate you buy costs 3 gold normally, but then you'll get 2 gold back from the hoggers, which means that once you sell the pirate itself, you're back up to 3 gold, making every pirate essentially free, which means that the moment you have 2 hoggers, free, 100%.
Free. I just want to repeat that, guys.
No,
free.
nothing, right?
People love free.
None of that Bob tax where you like buy something for 3, sell it for 1. No, buy it for 1, sell it for 1. So it means that you might also say, okay, so what's the benefit? Every pirate is free, because that's the initial stage, right? There's gradual stages here that we'll cover of APM Pirates, and once you're in the final form, oh my goodness, it is the most fun thing you will ever play. I can guarantee it. It's so good. So the initial stage is you have 2 hoggers. Okay. So once you have 2 hoggers, you start buying every single pirate. Now, there's a few reasons for that. Reason number 1 is you might have a salty looter on the board, which means that every time you play a pirate, you get +1/+1 to the salty looter, which is great. So that's buffs for free. Love free. There's also Swabby. Now you can reduce the cost of leveling for free. There's also the +3 attack pirate, which gives your whole pirate board +3 attack. And then there's the strong arm, which is the most important one, which gives +1/+1 for every pirate purchased that turn. Now you can imagine if every pirate is free and just like roll, buy, roll, buy, you hit 2 strong arms that turn, boom, your hoggers is like a 30-30. out of nowhere from a 6/6, especially if you have a brand on the board. So that is the basic design for APM Pirates. Now, there's a few ways to do that. The most basic way, if you want to try this out, is just, okay, I'm going to have salty looters on my board. I'm going to have hoggers on my board. And then I'm just going to buy every single pirate. I'm going to play them, sell them, keep buying more pirates. My salty looters are going to be big. And then if you can hit a pirate triple, so usually it's quite nice to buy the pirates, keep the pairs. And once you hit a third one, you're like, nice, okay, free triple, I'll play it. You might pull Eliza. Suddenly Eliza is giving more power to your board, and then you are good to go. I would say that the trickiest thing to playing APM Pirates is putting yourself on a board where your board can support 2 hoggers and you're not losing fights, you're not dying. So usually it's really good to get that Eliza early on, or to just have a big deflecto or this micro mummy you've had from the early game that's got a module on it that's carrying you. So this is a big thing when you're trying to get APM Pirates off the ground, is how do I not lose fights? Because 3 or 4 turns down the line, you will be really, really strong. You just need to not die while you're getting to the Exodia form, or if Exodia is for the AP, for the scam version, let's just call it the final form. So what's the final form like? You have 2 hoggers. This is great. Every pirate is free. What if you get 2 more? Now you have a golden hogger and a regular hogger. So now instead of buying pirates for free, you make money buying pirates. This is amazing. Now you go to the next level, which is I can buy every pirate I see, and I can just spam roll to get more hoggers. Once you have 2 golden hoggers, it's ridiculous. You get so much money per pirate, and you can start buying all the other cards that you want, because once you go to, say, 2 gold, you hit the shop with 2 pirates, bam, bam, back to full gold, just keep going. And this is where my favorite version of APM Pirates really starts to shine. It's where you have a Malgadon, because you buy so many pirates, there's such a high chance you triple and you just hit a Malgadon. You get a brand because you just see so many shops, you just keep rolling, 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 buying. I guess a really crucial aspect of APM Pirate is to know what you're selling. This is always a tricky part. Okay, what am I selling? So it's oftentimes correct to play 1 golden hogger, play 1 normal hogger, but hold the other hogger in your hand if you have good units on the board. Like, let's say you have 2 Elizas as well, you have a brand shilling, you probably can't afford to play 3 hoggers on your board, and you're probably gonna have to end up selling 1. But you're not going to do that when you're learning it. So you're going to try to keep that hogger, and you're going to sell an Eliza or something and then die. You can totally sell the Eliza off later once you have 2 big Amalgadons. But the Eliza at the start is there to keep you alive. So that's the final form. The final form is you have a Bran, you have 2 golden hoggers, you have 2 Amalgadons. Let's see, that's 2 hoggers, 2 Amalgadons, and a Bran. Then usually you have 1 giant salty looter and a buff slot. And that's just brilliant, because you can buy every Toxfin you see to buff your Amalgadon. You can buy every module you see. You can buy every jug you see. You can buy every Argus plus Scavenger. And then the pirates just fund this whole buffing frenzy. And it's amazing. So very fun to play. Once you're in the stage where you make money, you just stop thinking a bit. We're just like, okay, buy pirate, buy buff, go, 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 buy. Sometimes you just have to chill a little bit. We're like, okay, I'm down to like 3 gold and I haven't seen a pirate yet. Let's not buy every buff. Let's just roll, refill the gold with the pirate first, and then go off.
That's a lot of information,
Yeah, so I didn't say I was passionate about it. I love this thing. It's my baby for sure.
Probably gonna have to rewind and listen to that one again, just because if you really want to learn how to do this. Personally, I don't really do this comp that often. I always watch Adrian and say, "Oh, that's nice. Good for you." But I like turning my brain off as efficiently as possible, and this is more of a brain on type of gameplay, at least initially, right? Once you get the double golden hogger, brain off all the way, right? But then you're still APMing, so you got to move your mouse. That's a little bit of brain power right there, right? I have played this a couple of times, to be honest. Like it's a good comp. It is a comp that requires a lot of time, and you got to know exactly what you're looking for and things like that. So it's a comp, if you want to practice it right, don't be worried about doing poorly the first 5 or so times, even more than that, depending on how much you put into it. But it's a comp that has a lot of payoff if you can play it well, and it's very fun, right? It's very fun just watching too. Just watching things go. Like, yeah.
Just satisfying, right?
Yeah,
Just like,
yeah. So sometimes you'll see people like randomly have pirates, and then like the next turn their pirates are like all 100 hundreds, and you're like, how do they do that? It's been a turn or two, right? How do they do that? It's because they're playing this composition, right? It's one of those high level, high skilled, high MMR lobby compositions that you don't see at low MMR at all, just because people don't do it, or they're not skilled enough to make all the transitions and the time it needs before they can die, or they're doing something wrong. But yeah, it's something that it's a skill set that would be nice to have. I wouldn't say it's required, but it kind of reminds me of Khadgar transitioning in a way where it's a different skill set, but it can be necessary in the right games, right? There'll be games where you start with like double Hogger, and you're just like, okay, I have a double Hogger, or you have faceless Hogger, right? That's really probably the most likely direction you'll see it. You'll have a faceless in your hand, you'll see a Hogger. You'll use the faceless on the Hogger. Now you have 2 Hoggers. Okay, that's a good enough start, especially early in the game, to just commit to this composition, right? Because
absolutely.
So it's knowing the windows, knowing the opportunities to go to this composition is really what allows you to be early on, or that you won't take a lot of damage, and then you can utilize it to get into the nuts, the end game, right? What I tend to do is I'll get the double Hogger, and I'll do it, and then I'll just switch to scam because it's less buttons, Instead of going golden Hogger, I'll just add an Eliza, add a Scallywag, a Baron Brand. All right, I can just roll now. It's a lot simpler, but you can also just do it the full way, just having 300 salty looters and things like that. So there's different directions with it, but it does, like, knowing when to use double Hogger, I think, is the key direction that you have to identify when you commit to this composition. So definitely fun.
For sure. I think the resemblance to Khadgar, I think it's a good comparison. It's one of those things where if you don't like doing it, don't waste your time on it, because it is a small niche thing. It's definitely not a core part of the game, and you're not going to suffer a ton of MMR loss because you skipped a hog, or because you didn't, you couldn't be arsed to learn how to play APM Pirates. I just think it's super fun. I think it's definitely worth trying, but if you hate it, don't waste your time on it, for sure.
I don't hate it. I'm
just not passionate about it.
Not passionate about it. I do it a couple of times, and I'm like, I do it once, and I'm like, I'm done for the day. That's kind of how I feel. Where you're like, you do it once, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to do it next game. And I'm just looking at you like, okay.
The game is over. You're like, no, I wasn't done yet.
Yeah, reminds me of like just getting like double Khadgar or elementals. Yeah, I could do that with the elementals. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting composition. Something we want to talk about this week. So, go ahead, try it in game, see how you feel, if you like that type of gameplay, and practice it. Spam Shady for advice, I would say. Next topic we've got going on is, when is tripling a bait? So sometimes you'll be in your games and you'll have like 2 whatevers, right? In our example, we have deflectos. You have 2 deflectos, and you find a third one, and then maybe if you're a streamer, people just start screaming bait. Why are they screaming bait at you? What do you mean? Tripling is good. I get a higher tier minion. Why would they tell me not to do this? I don't understand. Well, here you go. We can talk about it a little bit. It's more about looking at your composition and realizing what makes your composition strong, and then why would removing 2 copies of something and making it 1, why would that make your composition weaker? Even though you're keeping the power of the cards, right? So let's say you have a 2020 or 2020 deflector, 2 2020 deflectors, right? Even if you triple them, you get a 40 deflector, right? So you're keeping the power level. But why does that make you weaker? Is the question that people want to ask here. So you want to start things off here, or
yeah, sure. Well, in the given example, Deflecto is such a nice unit because it got Divine Shield, but you can restore the Divine Shield. Now, if you only have one Deflecto, you can only restore the Divine Shield one time, and then after that, you just need to get lucky, hope they run into the shield, and then you have another reset. But most of the time, that's not going to happen. So it's better to have two 2020s that are both regaining their Divine Shield than one 40-40 that's regaining a Divine Shield only one time. There's other examples as well. In Taunt Comp, I think
there's quite a bit of examples. That's why.
Yeah, for sure. I think the most common one is Amalgadon, where you have two Divine Shield poison Amalgadons, and I think that's the very obvious one. Where would you rather have one unit with Divine Shield that deals infinite damage, or two units with Divine Shield that deals infinite damage? So there's even a few things where you might accidentally triple, or you don't even know it.
Right.
Where you're a farm, you steal a third Amalgadon, you're any hero, and you play the Tavern Tempest, and you accidentally get another Amalgadon. Suddenly, your two poisonous Divine Shield Amalgadons. There's only one poisonous Divine Shield Amalgadon.
You heard this? Accidentally getting another Amalgadon, he's crying. He's like, "Oh, I got another Amalgadon. Oh, woo-hoo, I'm so sad."
Well, the first step to getting 5 Amalgadons is getting 3 Amalgadons. Yeah, so if you're really strong, you might be like, whatever, I'll triple it and I'll get 2 more. Right? That's fine.
That's what I do.
Yeah, that's the call. It's like, what the hell? I'll get 2 more, no problem. It's just Amalgadon. A very common composition you see this in is Taunt Comp, where let's say you have 2 Wardens, the Bronze Wardens taunted and Divine Shielded, and naturally as the Wardens are Divine Shielded. Arm is going to give them a ton of attack, and it's pretty much the same as the Amalgadon example, where they both have, say, 30 attack, which is almost poisonous in the early mid-game. You don't want to turn that into one thing that deals 60, because that's massive overkill. But it still has very, very low health because Arm only buffs the attack. So that would be a very common example as well, where you don't want to triple.
Yeah, I got 2 more examples off the top of my head that I'm thinking of, right? When you're playing Scam Comp, right? This is very common, right? Where you taunt 2 Scallywags, and then you get another Scallywag, and then Shady just says, "Don't triple the Scallywag," and I hear it in my head every time. But I want to. Like, I want to, but it's necessary because 2 ton of Scallywags are key for making the Scam Comp work. So it's one of those very common ones that you almost forget, like, oh yeah, you shouldn't triple it, right? But if we're talking about why is it a bait, it's because you're reducing 2 engines into one, right? The engine of having Scallywags summon the 1/1s that get buffed and get reset from the Baron, right? Instead of having 2 procs of it, you're only having 1 proc. So you're actually making yourself 50% weaker. Is that correct? Is the math right? I believe so, right?
Well, yeah, half the Scallies means half the procs, right? Yeah, I guess it's like 49 point whatever, because the initial, that's my cat. The initial Scally is a little stronger, but so you're pretty much getting you're half as strong once you triple.
So that's kind of the key feature. Instant tripling should make you stronger, right? That's the logic, right? You get a higher tier minion, right? But a lot of these bait triples, you actually get weaker, almost half as weak, things like that, right? Sometimes the attack and health value doesn't mitigate the loss of like potential board strength, just pure board strength you have from having like 2 divines. Instead of having 2 divines, you have 1 divine, things like that. So it's definitely another thing. And then another bait I want to talk about is poison baits. So let's say you have like a 2 Myexnus, right? You find a 3rd Myexna, right? And you're like, oh yeah, I'll get you triple that. Now, instead of having 2 poison units, you end up only having 1, right? And unless you triple into another poison, which isn't guaranteed, right? You've essentially just made your board weaker in that you have less potential of scamming your opponents with poison composition. So it usually happens with sometimes Amalgadon, sometimes Myexnus, sometimes spores as well, right? Having a 2/2 poison spore isn't necessarily better than having 2 1/1 poison spores, especially if you have selfless and barons and things like that. So it's definitely something you want to look into when you're in the end game, and you just have poison composition with divine shields, right? Tripling that spore isn't necessarily going to make you stronger. In most cases, you'll get weaker. Same thing with my accent. So I just wanted to put that in there.
Yeah, very good example. I mean, usually you have to ask yourself, are these 2 copies going to do more than the golden copy? Now, you do get a board slot, so sometimes, sure, 2 copies would do more, but the golden copy and then an extra unit, a very common example is, oh, now I can fit a Selfless and I can put a Divine Shield. So a lot of the time the answer is like, yeah, sure, it's still fine to triple because I have an extra board slot. But sometimes the units just do so much work on their own, like poison, they already kill something. You don't want to kill half the things because you now have only 1 poison unit.
Yeah. Same thing with Nadina. Another one that came up in my head, right? You have 2 Nadinas and you're like, okay, this is great. And then you find a 3rd Nadina and you're like, well, should I do it? And you're like, I've never seen golden Nadina. So you do it, and then your Nadina is now 8 health, doesn't have any extra abilities from being golden, and then it's too strong and now it doesn't proc, and you're just like, wow, that was awful. That was exactly not what I thought it would happen when I tripled the Nadina. Now my Nadina doesn't proc and all my dragons die before my Nadina dies. Woo! Great gameplay. But yeah, that's another one you have to be careful of sometimes when you're looking at triples. I can't see your face, Shady, by the way. You want to move your camera up. You know?
Oh, I mean, the cat's here, right? I thought the cat's
Okay, yeah, maybe the cat's more important. That's true.
We can let the listeners decide, right? Leave a comment on the YouTube video, Shady's face or Shady cat, right? Let us know what side are you on, right? If you're watching the live stream, throw a cheeky little vote in the chat.
Fair enough. I think that's fair. And I'm gonna get balloon comments now. Oh my god, what have you done?
Add the camera towards the balloon comments. What are you doing, man?
No. Okay, another thing I want to talk about in this topic is, when is tripling not a bait, right? So we've talked all about how when's tripling a bait, right? Because of this, people are going to be like, oh, I have 2 deflectors, never tripling them. It's always a bait. I have 2 amalgamators, never tripling them. It's always a bait. Right? So I want to throw the opposite side of the story, right? When is tripling, deflectos, amalgadons, things, poisons even, right? When is that not a bait, right? When is that actually making a lot of sense?
Well, a good example for amalgadons is, the easiest one would be, let's say, Murlocs and Mechs are out, which, why is that relevant? You do not have access to Module, which would provide the Divine Shield, and you do not have access to Toxfin, which would provide the poison. But one of your amalgadons has a Divine Shield, and the other one has a poison. Well, then, that's a very easy example.
Fusion,
fusion.
Exactly.
Your actual unit. So, yeah. Now, sometimes, either Mechs are going to be in or Murlocs are going to be in, or they're both going to be in, and you're still going to want to do it because you triple them into a useful unit, even though you could have fixed them on your own. But now you get to discover a 6-drop. Let's say you're playing dragons and you have 2 amalgadons and they're kind of together, you also get a new series of adapts because the golden amalgadon rolls a new set of adapts. So even if neither of them has Divine Shield or poison, you're pretty likely to hit it. But you might also discover an extra Caligos. You might get Nadina. So a lot of the time you look at, okay, how good are these 2 individuals? And if one of them is lacking, or I guess if neither of them is a poison Divine Shield combo, you're pretty likely to be okay to triple them, especially because you get to fish for another 6-drop. If it's early in the game, especially early-ish, let's say, turn like 10, 11, that's usually earliest where you're going to have 2 amalgadons.
Yeah, I think being early in the game is one of the key identifiers where you can get away with tripling things, even though, like, theoretically you could say, I don't need a triple this. If it's early enough, you can find other direction. You can find other ways to make yourself stronger. So even though you're saying, oh, I have 2 deflectors and I'm making a mech comp, right? Tripling it early, especially if they both don't have like menaces on them, right? If they're both not committed deflectos, right? If they both have menace, then it's a little bit harder, because having 2 deflecto bots with menace is pretty powerful synergy to have, right? So regardless of if one dies, the other one will always have an extra Divine Shield on themselves. Whereas if they're just empty deflectos, no buffs, nothing, right? You just deflect them, right? Hitting like a Full Reaper, hitting an Amalgadon, right? Hitting a Caligos and maybe switching, right? Turns out you had two Bronze Wardens, right? Making a Divine Shield comp instead of a mech comp, right? Gives you more direction to go. So I think especially early on, when you're not 100% committed into a composition and you don't need two deflectos to not instantly lose and things like that, right? That's when you can triple and see if you can find better key pieces, right? Finding F4 and things like that, or finding a different direction to go for. Same thing with like even poisons, right? Even though let's say you have two Murloc poisons, right? Tripling them and looking for an Amalgadon and things like that, it can still be relevant, especially early. Just to see, can I make another Divine Shield Amalgadon or something like that, right? So it's not necessarily always a bait to triple things, even though once you start getting into like top 4 territory and you know what your opponent's running, and you can say, oh, he can't really counteract one deflector with this amount of stats, and even if I combine them, it's not going to make a difference, right? It'll still be like the same value. That's when you really need to think about, oh, should I triple here? Is it actually worth it? So that's just something to think about. It's not always a bait.
I think for the Deflecto example, you have to ask yourself, okay, am I just going to play mech? Because even you can have, say the best example is you can have 3/2 Deflectos, neither of them menace on it. If the rest of your board is screaming mech, let's say you've already got 2 eggs and then a micro mummy with a module on it for a guaranteed reset, then even though they're still really small, you might say, they haven't really started scaling yet. I don't think it's worth it because you might not see that 4th Deflecto for quite a while.
Right.
And we talked about how much better it is to have 2 copies. So if you're not really in mechs yet, then yeah, sure. Just use it as a means to get the Caligos, to get the Eliza, and transition out of whatever you had. If you are decidedly going mechs, which is going to depend on the rest of your board, then don't triple it, even when they're still small, because every Metal Tooth Leaper is going to be less efficient, right?
Good point. I was just I like tripling into the Caligos. I just wanted to mention that. Hey, just triple into Caligos and switch to Dragons. But if your comp is full mechs, even if you don't have any buffs on the deflectos, the 2 deflectors are really going to carry you, and there will be the key pieces to making a competent mech composition. So even if you have, you see the triple in the shop, and the rest of your board, except for like maybe a unit or 2, is mechs, and they synergize with the refreshes, and you're going to commit to mechs, and if like. Imagine, let's say you triple them and you get the Caligos. Can you actually transition before you die? If the answer is no, why did you triple, right? If you look at the triple and you're like, okay, let's say I get it. Will I be able to actually transition? Will it help me? And if the answer is no, then it just doesn't make sense to go for the bait, go for the triple there. So it's just something to think about when you're playing these games, right? Sometimes you always see people holding on to 2 copies when they see a 3rd one in the shop, and they just skip it, and you're like, there was a triple. You missed a triple, right? You'll get those comments sometimes. You missed a triple, streamer. And I'm just like, I know it was intentional. And there are reasons for these things. So just something to keep in mind when you're playing your own games.
There's a lot of time you're just playing a tier 4 comp where I'm just like, there's just, you look at what could I possibly pull from tier 5 here? And it's like, okay, nothing, right? Good talk. Why, this happens a lot as well. Let's say you have Harbingers and you have that little 2/2, the Acolyte of Cthulhu.
Right.
Turning that 2/2 into a 4/4, not only does it cost you 3 extra gold to buy the thing, if you don't want any 5-drop, you're not doing it for any particular reason, and you're getting weaker because you're getting half the taunt buffs from the Harbingers, because now you have only 1 Acolyte instead of 2. So that's another good example where if you're stuck on tier 4 and you're just playing this tempo thing, just have a quick look at the deck tracker if you're using that, see which units are in on tier 5, and there's maybe 1 unit you could possibly get that's good. It's probably not even worth the money.
That's a very good point there. I don't know how many Harbinger players are in there, but we see you. We see you.
It's like these dirty non-Caligos folk with your tier 4 compositions.
Yeah, for sure. That's exactly how I feel. Not really, but yeah.
I know you do.
But yeah, just something to think about in your own games, and whether or not to go for triples. Our last topic of the day, we shall be talking about early Kel'Thuzads. What do you do when someone dies early and you're just like, There's a free dead guy in the shop. I mean, the lobby. What do I do? You know, personally, I think when someone dies early, someone like leaves the game early, I think it ruins the sanctity of Battlegrounds. It breaks the game in crazy ways where people are just nuts out of nowhere, and you're just like, how did this happen? It's turn 7 or turn 8. They have 3 6 drops. What happened? I have 3 6 drops, you know, not you. What did he do? It's cause knowing that you're not gonna take damage at a specific turn just allows you to play very aggressively, put yourself in a position where if you were fighting anyone else, you would be taking like 16 to 20 damage, where it's like, well, I'm taking 0 here, so let's just play super aggressive and just super early ramp or things like that. Another thing that happens when there's an early dead person is that people start leveling a lot faster than they would normally, because they realize in order to fight the Kel'Thuzad, the last place guy, they have to be in bottom 3 in the shop, right? So in order to get bottom 3, you have to lose games, you have to take damage, right? In order to take damage, you know, you gotta put yourself in a position where you're weaker than your opponents. What's the best way to be weaker than your opponents but still putting yourself in a position to get stronger than them is leveling, right? So you'll just see people just level like crazy, just like, oh, let me take damage here, and then like I'll fight the dead guy eventually, and then I will, you know, after that turn I will spike, right, and get really strong. So there's a lot of different gameplay elements that come into play because someone else dies early. You want to talk about it, Shady?
Yeah, I had a pretty good practical example of this today where I picked Eudora. I don't love Eudora, but I'll pick it from time to time. And there was an early ghost, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to suicide level. So I bought a token on turn 1, I sold it, I hero powered. Then the turn after that, I sold a token, I leveled, I hero powered. And you just go straight for the 5 drop. And I got second place that game like quite easily. I just got an early Mama Bear, and as you mentioned, normally of that turn, we're like, ooh, I have 2 minions on my board, I'm gonna get smacked. It's like, oh, 0 damage. All right, let's start buying some beasts, and suddenly the game is very different. Yeah. It's definitely true. I think the observation you made, you know, you wanna of course check how many people in the lobby are paying attention to this. If you suddenly see those taverns like pop pop pop, everyone's like going 3, you're like, oh, you don't, you know, in an environment where everyone is power leveling, you do not want to be the one person that is not power leveling. Vice versa, in an environment where everyone is not power leveling, you don't want to be the one person that's power leveling. And the way how that works is, if everyone else is power leveling and you're not, you're going to get quite low return from the early investment you made, because you wouldn't have needed it anyway. Sure, you're going to deal some damage to people. It's not that much, and you know, you wouldn't have taken that much damage anyway if you had gone with them, which is what we say when you level with a person. But you're going to take it afterwards, because there's going to be this one turn where you level and you don't do much, and the other people have already gone to tier 4 and they're now buying high mains, harbingers, bulvars, you know, all these like higher tier tempo units, and they suddenly start dealing a lot of damage to you, right? If this happens to you, where you always follow this pattern where you level on 7 gold, then you buy on 8 gold, and then on level 9 gold, yeah. Then you go to tier 4. If you consistently take a bunch of damage that turn because people went to tier 4 before you, you can check who in the lobby is going up faster. And if everyone else is going up, then there's really not much reason for you to stay low. So that's a good thing you bring up, where especially in higher elo, you will notice everyone is just going like, boom, boom, boom. You just watch on the left, like tier 3, tier 3, tier 3. And you do not want to be the one person that's still tier 2 in those games.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I also had a game kind of similar to that, where there was an early dead guy. I think I was playing Barrens or something. Got my bet, like it was so easy, right? Because I was like, oh, this guy versus the dead guy, I wonder who's gonna win. And I'm just leveling, right? I fight the dead guy. Turn afterwards, I have like 9 gold or something. I level, get a 6, get another 6. You know, it's like, okay, here we go. The person that fought me took like 16 or 20 something damage. I'm just like, I'm sorry, man. It's just like, it's blame the KT. It's not me. That wasn't me. I didn't concede early. I just took advantage of it. But yeah, it's always a weird situation when you're playing with it and then you're noticing other people just like taking early damage so they can fight it, and you're like, what? How? That should be me. That should be me. I should be taking that. Yeah. And then you always get wrecked. I have this prevailing theory that the game tries to kill you. The game wants. I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. I have this theory that the game puts you into situations where you're supposed to die. Let's say you're 10 health. There's a dead guy, and you're like, okay, I'm supposed to fight the dead guy. It'll knock you against the highest health player just to be like, can you survive this? Can you survive this? Oh, you can't. Well, you lost. And then if you survive it, then it's like, okay, now you deserve the dead guy. More likely, someone will die then, and then there's no dead guy, and then you're just like, have you ever had those games where you're just like, okay, I should fight the dead guy. Oh, I didn't fight the dead guy. Okay, I beat the highest person in the lobby. Now I deserve the dead guy, right? Oh, someone else died. Now I don't get the dead guy. Oh, now I'm fighting someone else and I can't keep up. Okay, now I lost. Like it's quite common in my experience. Just a lot of the battles are kind of weighed against you, so just something to think about. Don't be the early KT, right?
Yeah, I'm totally with you where it ruins the flow of the game. I'd much rather have a game where there's nowhere to ghost. But if it's there, know what to do, right? Exploit it to the max because your opponents will be doing the same thing.
Yeah. Hopefully there will be none of that in the tournament coming up in 2 days.
It'll be unfortunate for sure. Yeah.
It might not be, right, if you can take advantage of it, but it would be just unfortunate if someone like has a disconnect issue or something like that. You're just like, well, I had that happen in one of in the last tournament I played. Someone DC'd early, and it was just like kind of weird. I was like, this isn't ranked, what is this? What is this going on here? But it was okay. Like, we still able to get through it, and after that we just played like normal. With he was able to get back in, so just interesting. Just something to think about in your games, and that shall be the last topic. Anything you want to add in there, Shadeen? Any final?
Thank everyone for listening. This has just been great. It's been super fun. Just talk to my friend about the game I like to play, and somehow people like listening to us. So that's just great. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I okay. Making these topics takes longer than I thought. I'm in the middle of drinking. I'm like, this is actual work. When did I sign up for this? But yeah, it's been good. The payoff's nice. I always like talk with Shady about these kind of things. And I want to do a podcast anyway. So I do want to thank everyone for participating. Don't forget, we've got mega bundles coming at the end of the podcast. I just got to set up the giveaway after that. I appreciate the feedback, appreciate the comments, all the nice things on YouTube. I read most of them, all of them, some of them I read sometimes. That's all I'm saying. Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, if you want to catch it there. It was nice to see some reviews on the podcast app. If you want, you can reach me at Educatedcollins, Educated_Collins at Twitch, Educatedcollins at Twitter, and YouTube, and all that extra good stuff. What about you, Shady?
Same as usual. Just Shady Bunny on Twitch.
I don't even know why we do this, because it's literally
throw it out there. Right?
Yeah,
Shady Bunny on Twitch,
it's on the screen. Like you can read.
Some people listen, right? Not everyone watches.
That's true.
Actually, the majority eventually is going to be consuming it through just listening instead of watching.
That's fair. All right, so thank you guys for joining us here today. You were right, actually, Shady. It's a little shorter than the other podcasts. How did you know? Good for you.
It was less text to begin with, so it's just a smaller block.
But yeah, thanks for joining us here, and I'll probably see you guys next week. We'll take care of our fourth podcast coming up. Probably we'll talk about you know, the new expansion and maybe the tournament as well. So a lot of good content coming up in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see you guys then. Take care of yourselves. Have a nice rest of your day, and peace out, folks.
See you guys.